Chiefs fans, welcome back to the Fastest 40. A little bit of the scare on a little bit of the Sunday scaries yesterday with the Chiefs game going against the Carolina Panthers. Obviously we walked into this week after a loss to the Buffalo Bills, expecting somewhat of a comeback there and a lot of expectations going into the week with Carolina and the shape of what that football team's been so far this year, and the expectations for Chiefs fans on what we anticipate to always happen after a loss like we had against Buffalo is a bounce back, and really the anticipation or the expectation going into Carolina was, hey, let's go route these guys and wrap up the game by halftime, right? And that didn't end up being the story. We win the game 30-27 with a game-winning field goal there at the end, even with Butker out. I know there's a lot of Chiefs fans out there kind of worried about what the play calling was going to be in the last minute of the game, with the absence of Butker and were we going to try to score the touchdown or were we going to settle for the field goal? And, it all worked out. Veach does his magic again. Andy Reid capitalizes on who's on the roster. And the Chiefs get it done in Carolina 30-27. And we move on. We're here on another Monday, Victory Monday, and we'll take the wins where we can get them. But I if you're in Kansas City and you think this is an absolute Super Bowl winning team right now, I think you got to take a step back and really evaluate where the team's at. Looking at the emotions and the response to the game-winning field goal there at the end of the game was an obvious, universal disappointment from both players and coaches, knowing again that game should have been locked up near halftime, if not midway through the third. At one point, we were up 11 points, and with Patrick Mahomes on your team, a defense that we've had be fairly consistent throughout the season, a little bit of troubles here in the last 2 or 3 weeks. You expect to run away with that game at the end of the game and not let young Bryce Young come back and really try to make this a game where it shouldn't have been one. But nonetheless, Patrick Mahomes comes back and looks like the old Patrick Mahomes we all remember and love. And really, we can't just single out, 1 game, 2 game, 3 game here, as consistently in the last 6 to 7 weeks. Patrick Mahomes has been playing good football, and those first 5 or 6 games are really the games that hold a lot of his stats, season-long stats, back after the success he's had in the last 6-7 weeks. So Patrick Mahomes goes for 269, 3 touchdowns, zero interceptions. After last week throwing 2 interceptions after going back-to-back weeks with no interceptions. This was nice to see against the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is going to be a huge part of this football team if we're going to make a run, and he's got to control the football. He did have the 1 fumble there on that last drive, kind of a garbage time fumble on the sideline there where he didn't step out and they knocked the ball out. They paused the game for a little bit and tried to identify where the spot was on that ball. Obviously, it goes back to the Chiefs getting knocked out and going right out of bounds. But Patrick Mahomes, great game. Can't ask for more from that guy. I think if you're going to ask more from anybody, it's got to be on the defensive side of the ball. And it's really not one person. It comes from a group or a unit that needs to elevate a play. And I think that's the whole defense there. Player of the game, got to give it to Noah Gray, obviously coming out being the second tight end. This guy could start for 20 other teams right now and be a number 1 tight end. Noah Gray comes out with 66 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. I know my guy Strato is very happy about that. He was looking at a parlay with 3 catches under 20 or over 29 yards. So early in the game, Noah Gray goes for 30 or 31 there for the first touchdown and smacks that home. But if there's a glaring deficit that we have on the offensive side of the ball, everybody's looking at the O-line, right? And I think a lot of that pressure has created a scenario for Patrick Mahomes where when there's not even a lot of pressure, if they're rushing 3 or 4, he feels the need to bust out of that pocket and make a play if something's not there, or if there's a pocket established and a receiver's not open, then he can't sit there and wait because he feels like there's going to be pressure at some point. Now, Jawan Taylor, pass blocking wise, he's played well, but when you look at the penalties, 10 penalties yesterday for the Kansas City Chiefs. Absolutely unacceptable. That cannot happen. You have to stay disciplined. That has been a problem for Jawan Taylor for the last 2 years at this point, something we're paying this guy $20 million every year to do. That's got to be fixed. And really, you can blame the coaching on that. You can blame whatever you want, but that comes down to an individual performance. Jawan Taylor's got to figure out the holding and those different play and the illegal hands to the face. I mean, those things got to be addressed immediately. But when you look at the left side, obviously Patrick's taking a lot of pressure off that blind side right now. Patrick Mahomes took 5 sacks yesterday, which felt like 40 pressures throughout the game. I mean, this was just an insane amount of pressure that Patrick Mahomes took from a defense that is 30 or 31st in the league in pressures and sacks, and which is just unacceptable at this point for this offensive line. I know I saw something from Mitch Schwartz today that he posted on X, and maybe it was from yesterday during the game, where Trey Smith essentially understands every single game he's at right guard that he has absolutely no help from the outside from Jawan Taylor because of the pass protection, the design of the pass protection. He has to go one-on-one no matter what at all times with whoever he's lined up against, and there's zero help, which I think goes out to a nod for the player that Trey Smith is. We know he's a dominant offensive line, part of the best trio, the interior part of the best interior line in the NFL. And but again, man, when you look at this offensive line, it's just continuously, week after week, it almost feels like it keeps getting worse and worse. I know we're looking at the DJ Humphries signing at this point for left tackle, but is that really going to solve all the answers on the O-line? I'm not quite sure. I hope it makes a difference. He's a thumper, kind of like Trey Smith is, kind of like Creed Humphrey is. They play hard, they play fast, and they like to thump dudes. But that's got to be something that's got to be, we need to bring in a tight end to chip, or we need some help from the running back, or whatever it may be. If we change over to 3-step drops, something's got to change for this offense so that we can protect Patrick Mahomes, because 5 sacks against the 30th or 31st defense and sacks in the league is just flat out not acceptable. Now, moving over to the defense, I think there's a lot of things that we could point out at this time, right? There's a lot of conversations about Chris Jones. He just signed the mega deal this year, and he's got 3 sacks on the year, and he's up to like 7 games now. He hasn't had a sack. A lot of conversation about pressures haven't really been elevated. And Dan and I talked about this last week, where we got a defensive line that was, or a pass rush, I should say, that has been superior for the last 2 years, top 3 in the NFL the last 2 years. And at this point now, we're looking at a bottom tier pass rush in the NFL, which is flat out unacceptable with the players we have on the defensive line and linebackers, because almost all of them are returning players. Now, will that change when Amenihu is back in the lineup and give us some flexibility at the edge? Maybe so. I mean, that guy's he's a stud, and he's obviously going to make an impact in the game. And, maybe that alleviates having to bring 5-6 guys on the pass rush time in and time out, which kind of leads to another issue, right? When you got to consistently bring 5, 6, 7 guys on the pass rush and really force a quarterback out of the pocket or force him into a running situation or whatever it may be, that creates the pressure on the back end for those defensive backs. And we've now seen 3 games in a row where McDuffie's got a touchdown against him, where he went, 20-some games without allowing a touchdown. And then Johnson, 13, has obviously been taking his licks both on the field but also on X. There's a lot of Chiefs Kingdom that is in an uproar right now with the play from 13 Johnson. Although he led the defense in tackles yesterday on Sunday against the Panthers, there has been, in my opinion, a shift in the play calling or the consistency, or I really can't pin anything on the defense that's changed, but it feels like everybody has an individual role and everybody's on an island on this defense. There's no continuity between the defense where Chris Jones is making a play that, two or three plays down the road, it impacts how Drew Tranquil is able to shoot the gap and get a tackle for a loss on an ISO play, or you name it, on a pressure, and Trent McDuffie's able to jump the route and pass block it, or whatever it may be. There's none of that. It is a true bend don't break defense at this point, where we're going to continue to let you run or pass down the field, and then once we get on our side of the football, the Chiefs side of the football, we're going to start to clamp down. Now, third downs have been an issue as well. Obviously last week with the Buffalo game, we saw Josh Allen go 9 of 14 on third down. And, Bryce Young obviously wasn't that successful on Sunday. But this Panthers team was also allowed to score 27 points on this Chiefs defense that went 30-some games without allowing 28 points from a team until last week against Buffalo. And so, unfortunately, Dan and I talked about this as well, that there is a trend now with this defense that is not headed in the right direction. And is Omenihu going to fix those issues? I don't believe so. I don't think he's going to be the ticket to change it. Is it, a couple other things that need tinkered on? I think that's it. I think there's something there that Spags can identify and can fix. But is that going to happen in December? Is that going to have to wait until January? I think that's the real question as it is right now. Now, if we go and play, Vegas next week, we play them on Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. Granted, it's going to be a backup quarterback here, but, division game. And if we're playing in the shape we are now and lost to or barely beat the Carolina Panthers on a game-winning field goal, we may have struggles next week against the Raiders. And it's going to be a tough stretch here for Chiefs fans and for the team itself. Now, I know there's two camps in Chiefs Kingdom right now. There is a very optimistic camp that thinks, it doesn't matter what's going on right now. If we get our shoe in January, then we are off to the race. And, Patrick Mahomes and Brett Veach and Andy Reid and the team's going to figure it out, and we'll go win another Super Bowl. The other side of that coin is everybody freaking out very similarly to how we were kind of picturing last season, right? Dropping balls and Patrick Mahomes couldn't figure it out. O-line was getting destroyed. And let me tell you, as a Chiefs fan, I live both sides of that coin every day, right? I try to look at both sides and see them both. And it's tough. I'm fairly more optimistic than I am scared about what this season will come out to be. But I do know that the football gods do play a part in this. And if we continue playing football like this, it can trickle into January, and we could see an early exit. So there are some things to work on. We got another dub, but Chiefs are sitting at 10-1. And just to take a look at the standings right now for the AFC, obviously we have the Chargers, Ravens that play tonight, but the Chiefs sit at the top at 10-1, followed by the Bills at 9-2. The Browns gave us a big win on Thursday Night Football, beating the Steelers, who are sitting at 8-3. They are the 3 seed as it stands. The Texans at 4. Chargers, Ravens, Broncos finish this out 5, 6, and 7. So as it sits right now, 3 AFC West teams sitting in the playoffs. And we got a few more games here left in the season to go, and we'll see how it shakes out. But that's all we got for this week, or for today. Chiefs fans, I know Dan's going to be on later on this week to walk through the Raiders game. And that's all we got. Let's go Chiefs.